Half a day. This is Arlene again, and I'm down at East Sagana Bay. You know by now that when I'm down here, it means we've completed another partition with iPeskadot and iPesadot. And you're correct. Partition 3 has been completed, and it is about Gadi, Tekken, and CHenchulu. We convinced some very discreet men who refused to talk about their fishing practices, but they were willing to do it for the project so that they could share and pass forward the things that they know to encourage other people to be able to fish. So pay attention, and we hope you enjoyed this partition.
Mapuksebiyaw ne. Pusibiya bawa na padgon ya sama pukse, you know. Tatao na pertata biahon na padgon na manaye. Pusa pupeskan na tatao pa na pagadi. Ina ni kamalago man gumade leko tutungo. Ni sabi padaw. Pusa mngone pa ko neno tio unayam po magu. Sa guapo tuno, guapa prito, guapa osne, guapa pona busino. Por cada penha mana gumadi. Amarana mangade, pana dosena tauta. I manelin tatau.
Selama guys, kalang peskan familia este or komunidad na siya. Buti noon nisita 15 na tauto, na pau chinegas sin. Pus bize no na atti na Gadi. Ini man ma chocho antes di gera.
One of my neighbors, my Uncle Ben Rages, he and my dad would coordinate the Gadi, which is a method of fishing using a LÅGUA, a net used to catch like manyaha. It's just, the mesh is very fine. So what that requires is that several people, 2 guys will be right at the net, and another 2 others will be holding the coconut leaves. They take the coconut leaves and cut them in half and attach them together. So the 3 guys near the net would be shaking the leaves as the rest of the group will go up about maybe 100 feet away from the net and start hitting the water with tangans or whatever they can find. And they start walking towards the net.
Tufuk di hagon nizuk na, amin utud di gaji sa 40 pe na gaji, pues puta tali hagon nizuk don sige no muna kiluluk di gaji sige ang godi sige amon wizay zilingnya para ikanainya na tak si Gadi na dos na kanay na ang hahali cep tasi pues buat tau LÅGUA na pues sige na yon watsa lagi goni tau LÅGUA asintina esta guaman jijing dong gi malalaw yan na sempe umisaw na lingnya sera komikilingnya para hutsum. Kuyan sera na itaw to mamuta malago halom na sige pa ako di aspantaw sama na ma hutsum na. Noon hahalagi kanto pues yun lingnya sera hala yung punta halom pues mahutsum pues masugun usong. Kuya itaw to LÅGUA at saulo. Sige pa ako na mafamaka bulala sa pitio o apoy nga sinang sosok.
Gadi ang puwega. Itio. Sanga itio ne. Ante dun musun kaya mano mga mapinakande. Sabihan ko malikande mamaragi itio. Pusade dane itio ihemo. Tagine pago okay, sumaga gina katasta ni tsuro. Pesai sang gina tauta ne. Sige pago panakiano. Pusto di tio manakot tsuro. Así ini Gadi. Persta ko masente na guano tio en kadulu sigiras.
Tay mana isang papa i Gadi no paropodum afa ni iwe ilet.
Ibo promo. Na foto papa kine sananga. Pasa masugo ne sampai tunga da un 60 na mahalo. Atau tuksa itu dulu. Sige ne pagin kadulu. Sa guana ini samtis 100 pound na costa. Pagwana 4 na costa na 100 pound. Ves, ini kadulu dai una pasrek. Lo mga mataka sa guan sinanaguan nupo, rockfish. Sige, sa guan seda. Lo Niki amtis beran mamami ane pat budak. Sanga gadang puegi. Sanga nani Tekken. Sanga manahak. Itu pemanahak manahanam talo. Sanga itu ilagwa manahak. Sanga ilagwa di tagika no Gadi. Sanga zo sanga Tekken. Mga malu na CHenchulu ani Tekken ani ilagwa manahak pareho ay ti pareho.
Tekken is a gill net. It's what it is, a gill net. You set it out in the ocean, in the water, and when the fish is passing by, they get stuck into it.
El tiempo más tiene al americano. Y más más no nahung trustes, flashlight, y candid. Dan después mot di Tekken ni man bendi tau to botku. Macam sip man waktu makan ni tapi memang ni di LÅGUA gini Taiwan o mana na banda dan fafan ni saja ni cuci ni Tekken. Spread ni an bule tasian ani koni pabu magunza an Tekkenam si saja Tekken ni kalau sabar dan minggu. Iku koni pabu zaman mepuskan. No, ustira Tekken gua na maisa nai. Pesi fumagun. Sule atsu siya madago anai te. Mamnai godong di LÅGUA ajan kene di pipia di maduk terapa ile sesuna LÅGUA ajan kene ni.
First was introduced to fishing with my dad. He used to take me when I was a child, like 4 or 5 years old. We were net fishing, you know, the Tekken. And they used to take me, they had a big boat, or you know, a flotation, a pan, a big giant pan that's surrounded by an inner tube where they normally put the nets in and let you, you know, ride in there. And it was actually like a family thing, family and friends. Sometimes there were 6 of us, even if there's only 2 people doing all the work.
Our father would actually also set the Tekken, so we'd go along with him, and when he was out going by the reef, it was a bit far out for us, so we'd actually, you know, wait on shore for him and see how he laid the net and catch the fish, and we'd help him pick up the fish and pick up the net. And his were larger nets, so you know, of course, after years they get exposed to the elements and damage from the coral or just from the sunlight. So we're old enough to buy our first net at A1 shoe store and took it from there. We were given allowance from my father, so you know, we kind of just saved up a bit, and my brother Ken and I were about maybe 13 years old, 13, 14, and we got our first net, and we started setting and catching our own fish. Opportunity was there, so we ran with it.
Okay, first off, we had to inspect all our nets, sew up all the holes. My grandfather will sew up the holes in the nets and teach you how to sew. And then prepping, like for the tides and stuff, we either go for, you know, the outgoing tide, so we set the net during high tide, and the outgoing tides, when, you know, we'll be checking it like every hour or something.
Setting the net is done primarily during the low tide or incoming tide. Me, myself, I prefer going from the high tide to low tide. And what I do is go in there, feel the water, I feel the current of the water, how it moves through my legs. The reason of that is because when I feel the water, where it's pulling, and you know, even just the feeling of the water in my leg, it tells me how to set my net. It tells me where the fish, the direction of the fish is going, because of the current. Fish do go upstream, you know, up past the current and down, but primarily once if it's pulling this way, all the other fishes, like especially in a shoal area where there's a little pool, of course the mouth of the pool is the targeted place to set the net, because all the pool will be emptied out. The net that we use, first of all, are a gill net. They got 1 inch, they got 2-inch net, and there's 3-inch net. Depending on where you, or what type of species of fish are you targeting. If you're going for sesdun and kichu like that, you use a 2-inch net. Now, if you want to go for the big Palaxi and discard with everything from chalak to chalak, by the way, is quillfish and or samaneti, we use a 3-inch net. That will make any fish that is larger than 3 inch go pass through. Actually, I don't even use a 1-inch net because you'll catch everything and anything.
You know, we also understood that when you lay your net, you kind of target certain species. Nets can be very, they don't discriminate. They can catch whatever, you know, it's going to get stuck in the net. So we kind of gauge it where we know what we're looking for, and that's what we're going to target. We'd scan the reef flats and look for the schools of fish that are feeding. And usually if we didn't see any schools of fish, we wouldn't even lay it. So
sometimes it's called coincidental fishing. You target a fish, you gotta be very, very good at it. You could do an observation dive. Primarily, that's how I do it. But as far as setting the net and saying, I'm gonna target this, no, it will not happen, and it's not gonna happen. Because some of the non-targeted species of fish would be caught in the net.
if that fish is small enough or big enough to fit through that mesh, then of course it's going to get caught. Now, when we targeted parrotfish, we'd normally use like a 5-inch net. So smaller fish would go right through it, and we'd only get the larger parrotfish. We catch the tan-faced parrotfish mostly. Schooling, they're usually inside the reef, and also galufi, which is the white pink parrotfish.
How I practice is like every 15 minutes I go out and check the net. And I'm not doing overnight fishing. I will not do that, because after a while, even though your cooler is not full or not full, you get tired and you forget about checking the net, and you have mostly repair work to be done, because there's predator eels out there, like the Augman is called the star eel, or the titigui, which is the moray eel. They'll come up there and just get a hold of the fish and spin around and tear the fish away from the net, or tear the net up. And once they take the fish up in there, they'll gobble everything down, and like it's been rolled in and tied like a knot.
I've gotten a lot of, I won't call it shark attack, but I'm dragging the fish and you'll take it away from me, or setting the net and the gill net and catching sharks, or not catching it but tearing the net. If you set the net here, especially at night, you're sure to have your net torn up by a shark. I'll say minimum holes on the net is 3. I have to repair the net, that gill net, every outing.
When we do go fishing with gill net, is not to leave it out overnight. If you do, I would probably be with amongst a lot of friends. We'll take turn shift and watching out the fire. Some will be cooking, some of course will be drinking, the rest will be fishing or just watching, just wanting to go out there. It's a family thing. It's when we go out fishing.
They didn't come out with the gill nets till later on in monofilament. Tekken never existed that time. It was only CHenchulus, they call them.
Yeah, we only did CHenchulu. My dad did rod and reel, but there's also the gill net, but we didn't do that because you stretch that out, you come back into the shore, you wait a couple hours, and you go back out and you walk the net and you pull the fish out. Sometimes you get junk fish and you're not going to eat it, so you just throw it away. That's why I like the CHenchulu, because we were picky. We picked our catch. And I preferred that type of fishing over any other because the net that we used did not capture any fish that were considered unedible.
The CHenchulu is like the old ways of fishing where you take coconut leaf instead of a net. You weave the coconut leaf all together. I'll say anywhere maybe 50 feet, but you need a whole bunch of people because they're holding the net up. Then you have people chasing the fish into the bay. The one with the net will come and encircle it, close the fish in, while others are diving in. So people are still holding it up, but the men are diving. Usually it's the the ladies that are holding up the net. The young men are diving in to get the smaller fish. The older men are getting the bigger fish. People are either diving or standing and spearing it as they go along when it's not that deep. I seen it done too when I was in Rotonga Cook Islands, and that amazed me. I said, "Yep, that must be where our family got." You know, it's not a chamorro alone type. It's shared among islands, I guess.
There are two types of nets in Palau. But it's called wugada. There is bidigil, it's the one that you throw, and then there's what we call the kasokos. So there's a kasokos and bidigil, two different, and that's how we could distinguish. And kasokos usually involves many people. It requires more people because in the olden days they used the palm trees to weave the net. I think it's a vine in the forest that they go and cut, and it's a long vine. It can go up to 100 feet, one piece. So they'll cut it up and then they'll bring it over. They'll dry it up first so it's solid, and then they use the other tree that there's plenty of that in the Naval Hospital area. It has a fruit. The fruit is sort of white. That's what they use for weaving this net. And only on certain times when they do this, because they know that certain fish will come in on a certain time, and this is how they go and catch it. This is usually the fish that are in school, schooling kind of fish. There will be the parrot, the white parrot fish, and then the tataga, the also will have come in school. Certain time of the year they come in school. Usually the old man will be sitting in the abay at the dock talking about when they're going to do it. So they will send some sort of investigator to go out in the reef to look at it, and then come back and say, okay, that place at this time tomorrow we'll go. And so we will all go. The young boys will go on the raft and we'll go over and we'll surround it, corral it into the deeper water where there's a lot of rocks, and then each adult will spear the fish and then put it on their bamboo and then raft, and then that will be it. And then they open it up, let the fish go, they put it on the raft, get it back to the rock island for the next day again.
How big is the net?
Say about maybe 300 feet.
And how deep does it go?
Yeah, it's not deep because it's floating in the water. But what it does, it scares the fish from getting out.
Don't they know they can go under?
They're scared to go because it's dark and what have you. But you know this, we talk about a fish getting smart. Sometimes one will go out and everybody will go out the same place. Once the fish is all gathered and then they're finished, they put the net on the raft, and then they come to the rock island. Then the old man, usually there is a designated division person to divide the fish among all the groups, all the families there, and then he'll. I don't know if there is such a name for the person to divide, but the term for division is mros. So they'll talk mros. So the man who knows will divide the fish among them, and then they'll go home.
We can go way back to Timbat. Jesus Rosario, known as Timbat. He's from Mongmong, and he was a traditional cultural fisherman. And that type of traditional cultural fishing was surround netting. You know, that was one of Guam's way of taking in reef fish. CHenchulu mamanak, that's what they call it in Chamorro. So I started young fishing with him also. I was one of the so-called original. All of us were young during that time. We all originated from Tamuning, and Timbat was one old man that a lot of us young kids wanted to make some money. You know, I didn't have a net. I only went fishing, and what they call my share, my patti. Every time I went, my share. I mean, sometimes we would feel 30-40 pounds of fish. I would get in the sack, put it in the sack, and then we're using the 50-pound cargo sack, and that's how much seidun and kitsus and palexis we were catching. And my share, I said, wow, this is a lot of fish. I would put some aside for the house, okay? And the rest, I would take it to Matia's store. There was a store called Matthias, right by GPO, across the street. It's called Matthias store. I would take that to Matthias store and I would earn $7, $14 of you know, and I would always have money in my pocket.
Si tatamami antes na kitampungera, pumepesca. Pestores na naudi guiane, atala tananglo. Besapan na sinenan antes, iguia and atala tananglo, pega kadi, tagi tobot, tagi marawana ni di kle. Pesensine galing guian, sa engkekina ibiar mami gui, anami ni manelo, pes mamodan ke card, al mandalaga mulo ne, sambil zigbian, you know. Amata mutali popo, bula tau, mas di 500 na tau. Pues saya na pemano pensaga kuanum tau na pamano, no. Siyempre sa tamami talaga bad na panaga, bad na pamboka. Sa sige sa tamami antes ibrada na ipeska. Sa dama manapanala ipeska. Mana sa tau de matotso ipeska doing the war. Pues ta tau ne no atunga mandaksi no CHenchulu. Atunga madiboza ang promo. I promo ne inalalago. Take pagin nila casa ne papa. Inatuko to papa casa personago su tenta mapa. Tenta tak para CHenchulu. Palinea le. Pagi boza from compago. Manurinas to ta nako na hauzo. Entala. Personago to anglo na inito para boza. Inito na to pago. Peseng bispis. Pes ad individual alum ne. Ado na no pagitali. Ado mame para CHenchulu. Pagi program sina nakat ke Philippines sama mano. Antes from compago. Kampen na boza, depende kapan na nako. Kana masih 500. CHenchulu ki ane badu pameska kana 300 feet to 400 feet and nako. Pagi tenado panen titik Nige nasasad. Ang matitik CHenchulu mami kawal malak siya. Pero sa panagi pa magono tanan. Lo hami ne, yung panagi pa magamami, apanagan sa tamami tamano, sige pagin titigli.
Pues ito tamo sa malaga? Quanto naman yan?
iPeskadot ne, rosama. Azi telu si wansi usario, matay. Matitula ni pamagon niya. Pagkawa ni Tekken ki usario family, temba family. Basta pago, bawa mana pumeska. Tora nasago ni pamagon mami, ane grand.
Pumeska maaga CHenchulu.
CHenchulu pupetto. Pupetto Peskadot.
Pupetto, pinahan Peskadot?
Adi CHenchulu ne.
Adi mo usay CHenchulu.
Yeah.
My very first fishing technique that I learned was called CHenchulu manhala. And that fishing technique uses a very large fish net that can be about 400 feet long. The English name is a drag net. It's a large net that is taken out into the middle of a lagoon when the water is quite shallow actually, about 3 feet deep or so. And the net is spread out parallel with the shoreline. And the two ends of the net are pulled in to the shore until the entire net is pulled up onto the shore and all the fish that are caught are collected. That technique I first learned in the mid-1970s, and I learned that technique from a Mr. Vicente Lujan. Family name is Kapili. He's deceased now. He was a very good teacher. We would typically go to the beach at night. All the fishing that we do is at night, and the women of the family would wait on the shore while the old man and I would fish, and we'd bring the fish in. That was a very old net that we first started fishing with. I don't think it was nylon. I don't believe it was an island. It looked like some kind of natural material. But that was the only net like that I'd ever seen and used. The net was about, as I said, it was 400 feet long, and about, I believe that net was about 5 feet in height. And like any other fishing net, had floaters affixed to the top of the net to keep the net up, and lead weights along the bottom. It was very heavy, a lot of lead weights on the bottom to keep the bottom of the net down while it's being dragged. And then the ends of the net had 2 very long ropes, so that for pulling, obviously, but also I think the ropes at the end of the nets were so long that the fishermen at each end pulling the net kind of functioned as one of the things they would do would be their movements would chase fish into the inside. So if you were standing a little bit away from the end of the net and walking, your action actually scares fish into the area where the capture area, so they could be caught. The type of fish that we were going after actually were juvenile goatfish, we call that tiao, and juvenile skipjack, we call those ii. And we caught predominantly those species because we knew that they were available at that time, but from time to time we would catch very small sharks, and sometimes we would catch fish that were called kakakak. The majority of the fish we caught were tiao and ii. These areas where we fished were typically sandy areas where you have very few chances of the net snagging. So the fish that you predominantly find in those areas are the juvenile goatfish. And once the net is on the shore, then everybody would assist in collecting the fish. The place where we fished was in PT, what is now the part of PT where they have the observatory, the underwater observatory there. And that's also a fish preserve now, so you can't use that technique there anymore. All our fish we collected, we put into 5-gallon buckets. So we would catch about, it would average between 5 to 6 5-gallon buckets full of fish, which was a very good catch. And CHenchulu and panak is when they use a very large fishing net that's several hundred feet long. And it requires a crew of men. And what they do is they open the net into a large C configuration, open at one end, and the men chase the fish into the net. They call it CHenchulu and panak because they hit the water as they're chasing the fish, and they throw rocks and they herd the fish into the open end of the net, and then they close the net. This is done inside the reef. They close the net and then secure the net, and they check the bottom of the net to make sure that there aren't any. In Chamorro we call that tsanga, when there's a space under the net for the fish to escape. So you make sure that the net has no tsanga, and then everybody jumps into the net. All the fish have been corralled inside, and they use this toksa to hunt the fish down.
I joined the military, the U.S. Air Force, which brought me to Guam. I moved in with a Chamorro family, the Ogos, Ogo Imaizame, and I stayed at the house of Antonia Ogo Imaizame and her family. My best friend in the Air Force married the daughter, and he was stationed here. And he said, you got to go to Guam because it's Jacques Cousteau underwater, and the girls are beautiful and everything. And so I put in for it, and nobody wants to go to Guam in the Air Force. They call it the Rock, I don't know why. But unlike a lot of the other young guys in the Air Force who spend all their time listening to rock and roll on their stereo systems in the dorm, I was out with this family basically back in the early 80s. So I got into fishing and learning the fish names and learning a little bit of Chamorro. And Mom Ogo's, Antonia Maizame, Her cousin was married to Gadi and Jesus Gadi in Pauget. And they had a big family of boys and girls. And so I went fishing with them, and they still had this monster CHenchulu net that he had woven, the family had woven out of cast off Persane net, so the big black net. And it was huge. It took about 12, 15 people to man it and panak and all that and get the fish in and stuff. So that was a lot of fun.
We did a lot of fishing in our life. It's a family tradition. Everybody that knows my family, they go, oh yeah, this is the Talai family from Asan, the fishing family. We, with 9 kids, you got your fishing crew right there. We are right by the water. We had a bunch of fishing people. We have the Diaz family, we have us, we have the Cabana family, and the people just that live on the ocean side, they fish there. That's prime fishing ground. But it's no longer prime because of all the preserves now that they had created. There's a preserve going towards Camel Rock. We used to go all the way to Camel Rock to fish, and that's where we get all the big fish. The channel in Asan, I mean, being that we come from a fishing family, we were always told, no, don't go near the channel because the channel is hungry, especially when the water is high. You can actually see the channel move up and down. And so we were told, we actually believed that it was breathing. What it is there's a rock, stone coral formation right outside the channel. So when the waves come in, it creates like a whirlpool effect. And so when you go out and you dive into Sagwa at the time, it'll pull you out. But we had a lot of drownings in that area. And so Mom and Dad always told us to stay away from there when the ocean's hungry. So we always stayed away. But we were told later on that if you ever get caught in it, it'll pull you out, but eventually it'll pull you back in. And so when you don't fight, because that's how you drown, is you're panicking. And so the best thing to do is just to relax and let the currents bring you back in. And once you come back in close enough to get to the reef line, then swim to the reef and get there.
Where did you do your fishing if you didn't do it in the channel?
We did it on the reef. So we did it going from Shelton Music all the way down to Churito Point, the governor's offices. It was at elementary, and we would go all the way down and go back to Shelton and stop there. And so when you go to CHenchulu, you go out, you open the net into a semicircle, and you have like 6 or 7 guys on each side. My mom and dad were pulling the inner tube to close the net. So after they open up the semicircle, 7 of us will go on this side and 7 will go on the right side. And then we would take some balati and throw it out towards the reef line. And at the same time we throw it out, we're running out there with our spears and we're splashing the water and we're running like this. And so while they're running out there, my mom and dad are moving the net out, and we start coming in with just splashing. Everybody's getting together, we're all splashing.
And you would smack the water in different ways depending on what kind of fish were there. Sometimes people would see, a particularly big fish going, and so they would yell at you to go over that way and chase it back. So for like Saganis, like Setzun and Hiting, if you just smack the water, they'll just go into a rock or go up next to a rock and stop. And so you tap, you panak, right? You tap when you go in. When there's lots of Saganis, like in south of Governor's Adalu, south there's like a lot of Setzun and stuff, so you would probably panak instead of slapping the water. Take your sling and you hit the rocks, so it makes this banging sound, and that scares them out, and they go into the net.
And as we get closer to my mom and dad, we can see the shadows of the fish in the water just go into the net, and then my mom and dad would close the net, tie it up, and then everybody would put on their goggles and their snorkel, dive in, and look for the fish that we want to catch. And so we were very picky on what we wanted.
And the fish would go into the net, and depending on the kind of fish it would do different things inside the net. And so you could go to different parts of the area, enclosed area, and it's a monster area. It's huge, thousands of square feet. 2,000 square feet maybe, like a decent sized house. Basically, it's a monster. And so depending on the fish, you know, you could go to different parts of inside the net and get them. So what the fish usually did though was like go straight in, go straight to the back, and then see the net, and then start circling back around really close to the net around the front. And then at different points in this pattern, fish would drop out and hide. So maybe the tataga would go to the back of the net and just go into a rock, whereas the palameta or you know, pulusk or something like that would go to the back of the net and start circling around again. And so people would position themselves in different places to catch this.
We caught a lot of sedzon, tataga, gado, and whatever was inside the net, the reef fish. The gado was either brown or red. And then we would get some skipjacks, some tarakito, or mamulan. The mamulan is the bigger skipjack. And so when those come in, everybody's excited, especially when you're underwater and you're about to shoot a sedzon and this big fish passes by you, it freaks you out, right? So everybody's jumping out, mamulan, mamulan. So everybody's just out there and just looking for it, because you can see the silver skin, you know, just going around the net. And I'm like, oh Lord, let me be the one to catch it, let me be the one to catch it. And then right when I said it, here comes one of the kids for that my mom and dad taught. His name's Gary Cruz. He's also known as the vacuum, because he can't miss. He always catches it. He would catch it. He was like, oh, thank you, Mr. T, you know, to my dad. My dad goes, good job, boy. You know, your mom's gonna love you tonight.
So you never caught the mamulan?
I never caught the mamulan, no. I was just sitting on the inner tube until I got back from the mainland. That's when I realized how much I love fishing.
And if you were lucky enough to get a really big fish, everybody would stop, you know, shooting tataga or hanging or whatever, and position themselves along the edge of the net and wait for the big fish to come by, and everybody would try to get it. And if it was really big, you know, you'd leave it alone because it would just screw up your sling. And then Gadi Manibusan had the big tuksa, and he would take out the mamulan. So we used to get mamulan in Tumon, and sometimes in Cocos.
The only thing I've done is I've been a little innovative and creative, and I can catch the fish by myself. In the old days, they used 2 inner tubes or 2 bamboo rafts, load the net, and then they got to swim it. Where I'm sitting at right now, it's 20 feet. Originally, they dredged it out. It was 20 feet here, 20 feet there, 20 feet at the third, and 30 feet out here, because I originally measured it. So when I order my nets from the Philippines or wherever, I gotta make sure it reaches from top to bottom with a little boliche so you can have some play. Well, what I developed, and everybody's followed, is if you stack it in a certain way on the boat, you just throw out the end and let it free flow, circle the fish, and, you know, lock it up. Very simple. The way I stack it on my boat, and my 2 girls, Sharita and Mary Jane, they know their position. One watches the floater, one watches the lead. The lead has, wherever you stop, the lead has to be straight down. Because if you don't, you taunt from the boat to the lead line, there's a big gap. So as soon as we stop, that lead's got to go down. Then we proceed, and then we go from there. From start to finish, all the way around, it goes to the bottom. But I need a crew to help me with the rest, with the heavy lifting, with the diving, controlling the net, locking the net up. You know, you need a 4-point lockup so it doesn't fold inside and kill the fish, literally kill, or the fish escapes. I just got my ass chewed out by my wife. She told me, she said, you know, you've been playing giveaway for the last 50 years. Now, do it the right way. The way Timba, Tony Tagalog, Tony Diaz, the way they're doing it, do it that way, and I'll feel better for you. When you bring in the catch, no matter what it is, half of it automatically goes to the bone owner, the net owner. Half. I don't care if it's 3 or 4, half. Then you split up the rest accordingly. I've been just puttying the same with everybody, and everybody goes, oh, that's great, Johnny's the best.
Why were you so generous?
Because I always made sure that my ass is covered as far as expense. Gas, oil, repair on the motors. Now this new net is paid off. So you can begrudge into us even more.
So why was Bobby concerned about the way you putty?
Because she knows I was cheating myself.
My catch, I always donated it to the Manamku. I would go to my auntie's house and I would give it to them, and they would try to give me money. And I was like, no, it's okay, you know, because I believe that if I give, I will get more the next weekend. And it always happens.
What on?
My Auntie Nana Santos and Auntie Da Santos. They're spinsters, yes they were. And they were always there. They always took care of us growing up. They were there, they always gave us candy, soda, and they would cook for us, you know, and they would take care of us. They were just very, very loving women. And they were teachers too. I believe they were teachers at Adelup Elementary.
Those fish would be taken back home, and it would be, we call that patti or fakai. We would divide the fish up, and the family that owns the net and of course is leading the fishing expedition gets the most, and then the helpers, I would get some from my family, and then they would also provide shares for all the other family members, especially family members, older women who didn't have men in the family that went fishing, so we provided them with fish as well.
But some of us, like myself, I was very rebellious. I did not like to go fishing, you know.
Why?
Because I just didn't want to go out. It was hard, a lot of hard work, you know. But I'm not saying I'm lazy. I just didn't want to go. I'd rather stay at home, watch cartoons on TV, and you know, just stay at home. And I don't want to go out and work. I mean, I do enough work when they're home and they tell me what to do. But we had to go because there was no one going to be at the house to watch us. And so when we went, I'd do my thing. I'd splash in the water, you know, for them to chase the fish inside. And then once the net was closed and everybody jumped in the net with their spears and started spearing the fish, I would go on top of the inner tube and just sit down and wait for them to be done.
You weren't interested in spearing fish?
I was not interested. I felt bad killing anything.
Even today?
No, not today. When I got back, when I lived in the mainland, and I was told by a good friend of mine who's not, he's not Chamorro. TW, that's his initials. His name is Thomas Williams. He's a very good friend of mine. He's a Vietnam vet, and he was working with me in Alameda, California. And he was telling me that I was very fortunate in my lifetime, in this lifetime, to know that I have an identity, and that my identity is from Guam, and that I am called a Chamorro. I did not know what an identity was at the time until he told me. All I knew is that I was from Guam, I'm Chamorro, and trying to make something of myself. That's the way I interpreted my identity. I didn't know that my identity was being fortunate to know that I'm from a particular place and that I have all this people around me that share the same traditions that I do. And he made me realize, you know, I am very special. Guam is very special. And so not too long after that conversation, we were the first base closure in the continental United States. And I decided, where am I gonna go? Where am I gonna go? You know, I was given two opportunities, one to move to Utah or to move to Michigan. And I told myself, I think it's time for me to go home. And so it was really good that I came back in 1993. I got back at just enough time to be with my dad and tell him I love him and everything. And at the same time, when I got back, I remember my friend TW telling me how fortunate I am to have an identity, that I started to go fishing. And in fact, I picked it up and I loved it. I loved it so much that I was going 2 days instead of just one.
I love net fishing. Ever since I was young, my dad would take me and throw talaza, and then we'd gather. And for the effort and you put into it, the cost of the equipment. You get a talazza, you keep it in, you maintain it. Over the years, it pays itself 10 times, 5 times. All my gear has been paid for. You said, I've been arrested 38 times? That's nothing to be proud of. And I taunted. I said, what am I doing? I went to Vietnam, got wounded 3 times for Mama's Apple Pie Chevrolet and the American Way and my island. I'm doing something that I didn't learn in Texas or in Hawaii or any of these places. I learned it here on Guam. And I've been doing it. I just turned 78 3 days ago. And I've been doing this since I was 7. So you do the calculation. Back in 1952, when I was 7, I started my venture in fishing. And 71 years later, and these people still come by. You have to follow regulations. You have to move your net every 6 hours. Get out of here. If you know it, I'm going to move that net with me and my 2 girls. That's my crew. And I'm so proud of them. Now I've had a triple bypass. Lucky that was in July. But when I got back, I still caught fish. This is my last rodeo, baby. I'm 78. Where am I going?
Do you feel a strain when you're under the water?
No, I don't. But I'm not a doctor, but I'm just a layman in the business. I know when I'm overextended, when I overextend myself.
So you feel that it's time?
Yeah, yeah.
And who are you handing over the
To my
reins?
daughter, Sharita.
Sharita.
And if she wants to take it and run, fine. If not, sell to the highest bidder. Every floater, every piece of lead, every foot of net has a value.
Your father was talking about how this is his last hurrah, his last rodeo, and that he's offered it to you to take over. So we would like to know your feelings on this.
My feelings?
Yeah, what are your thoughts?
He's just passing it on, along to me. It's an honor.
I don't think he knew that you were willing to take it.
Oh, really?
You are?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Something we've done since I was a kid.
How old were you when you started fishing with your dad?
With Dad,
As soon as she started swimming.
yeah, 6, 7, 8.
6, 7, 8.
And we used to fish right when him and Tony Diaz would fish in the channel, and we'd come down to help clean and get in trouble by playing in the net, getting wet.
In the 71 years, we never lost a fisherman. We
That's
never
very
lost
good.
a member.
Safety, we always have to help each other out.
That's right. She's a captain too.
A boat captain?
Merchant
Really?
Marine captain.
Merchant Marine captain.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting for a female. When did you become that?
I got my license in 97.
So the whole fishing culture is something you're ready to embrace on your own. You're going to take over.
Sure, absolutely.
How do you expect to do this?
With our fishing boats, with our fishing nets, and our crew.
Well, we want you to know that we truly appreciate everything that you've shared with us. We appreciate all the years that you've devoted to this work. You have said from your own mouth that you fed many people out of your generosity. So I'm sure that if they were all here, they would be grateful for that. And now you are doing what tradition does, and that is passing it on to your offspring. So that's why I had to ask Sharita to come into this, because I wanted to know on record if she was going to take on this challenge.
It's very heartwarming because my husband has been fishing for years, many years, and to pass it on to his daughter. If anybody was to take over the fishing for Johnny, it would be her. She's been at her dad's side, you know, especially this last year with all the fishing that they've been doing. This film is really, it's been great.
You're not going to be fishing anymore. You've handed over the baton to.
I quit. I quit. There's too many factors, and there's so many things that are changing all the time, every day. Now, if they came up to me and said, Mr. T, we'd like to learn how to fish. It's not that hard. Beautiful production, Arlene. It's very well put together. You and Vanessa, Doc over there, you did a fabulous job.
Thank you very much, Arlene, for your efforts in putting these things together, because it's really important for those that are aspiring to be fishermen.
You still fish?
Well, very limited now, but I'm stepping down as mayor, so this is my last term, so I might go back to fishing again.
There you go.
But I'm compromised as far as health, but you know what, when you're stubborn at heart, I'm going to find a way to fish again.
Mas bonitos too, man. This one
like
is
this one better?
extensive. Lomalik it's a kalanazi, you know, it alludes to the Pocabales, to complete it. And this is a very good interview on all of them. And I got to see my brother Ed again.
Yes.
And he still catches bigger fish than me with that taladza. And
right
when
there.
the pisaw, yeah. And he caught those big mamulans with he's expert and he knows where they're at.
Yeah.
The mamulan and the secret. I don't think I should say the secret to the mamulan. Family secret.
We don't get fish as often as we used to because my dad passed, but his friends still come around, and my cousins, Uncle Ron, Ronnie Boy, they still give us fish because they feel bad that we don't get fish as often. As a matter of fact, Uncle Frank just dropped us fish last weekend. I was telling Sam, I said, I'm gonna drop this at the co-op because I don't want to clean this. But he was saying he can clean it because my dad taught him how to clean the fish. So he said, I'll clean it, Mom. And I said, okay.
There you go.
It's always nice to see new footage of my dad. And, you know, I just want to thank you for your friendship and for just like keeping my dad's memory alive.
Yeah, you know, my dad, he was very generous with sharing how Palau techniques and Palau fishing techniques, because when he moved here to Guam, he basically found family. So everybody that he's met here treated him like he was a brother of theirs, and so he shared it generously with how we fish down in Palau as well. Even when I was younger, I would fly up here from Palau because I stayed in Palau with my mom, and I would fly here every summer to help my dad. We would invite Mr. Dan Narcissus to come, and he would be teaching all of us kids ages 8 to 16 how to do talaja and how to appreciate all the different kinds. I've carried that ever since then.
I've known Kevin all my life, and I've known how his father has been a prominent fisherman, even though Uncle Ted has been here on Guam pretty much most of his life. He's pretty well known in Palau of being such an avid fisherman. And it was a really great opportunity to see him on this documentary, because Uncle Ted's no longer with us, but when you see him on the video, it's like he's still here with us. And I think like how there's other fishermen that are no longer with us, but the fact that you were able to document it means that other people are going to continue to be able to see it. And so the information that we were seeing just earlier is just such invaluable information. Like, there's so many things that I didn't know and I learned, but also there's a lot of similarities that you see from different islands, whether it's Guam or Palau, or even Mr. Anthony was saying he went to the Cook Islands and he saw the same thing.
Right.
And so it kind of goes to show that we're kind of like all just one people. It's very interesting, and I'm so happy that I was given the chance to see this, and I think it'll be such a great thing for the community.
I know that you were a little surprised when I mentioned that you're the reason that I started this. So I'm going to remind you, you recommended me to collect fishing stories for Noah.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
Kind of.
Kind of? Well, that's what started it. So I went out and collected, I think it was 9 or 10. And all they wanted were transcripts of those interviews. But because they're my interviews, I thought, man, we got to do something with this. So I took off on just continuing to interview other fishermen. So it really is you that spurred me into this, Alex.
Oh.
And I want to thank you very much for that.
Oh, and I guess that probably came from the Gadi family, you know, them showing me so much, you know. I learned a lot, you know, and I hadn't realized that you had done that interview, so that was kind of shocking. But yeah, just to learn about all the other types of fishing, and I thought it was great. I can't wait till the whole island sees it.
I'm not that too far removed from fish and the ocean, because I do teach marine biology, and Alex and I both were students at the Marine Lab. But this part of Alex I don't know too much about, because he did this with the Gadi family before we met, and I only met a few of them. But I think that this video really shows the details of the fishing, the methods. I think this is really important in preserving some of that knowledge, and so I think that this is going to be just an awesome video that people are going to enjoy, and I can't wait to see the other one.
We've never seen this type of showcasing of fishermen in Guam. It's always been written or short interviews, but something to capture the history of the fishermen on the island, as well as, in the Marianas. Grateful that you're able to accomplish this.
What's starting to occur to me is, you know, this is your legacy. In effect, what you're doing is you're pulling all of us along with you, and long after we're gone, we're going to be in Guam's history. Everybody else here learned from their parents. I didn't learn from my parents because my parents were not fishermen. But what I've done is I've passed it on to our kids. So I'm starting it. This is going to be as big a hit as the first. It really hasn't been done, and it's something that should have been done a long time ago, and I'm glad that you're the one that's doing it. And, you know, I mean, as long as it's your passion, it's my passion, and we're just going to continue doing it.
Thank you.